In this video, we're going to walk through some of the biggest announcements from the recent FabCon in Vienna. I'm going to focus on some of the ones I'm most excited about on data flows. And hopefully you've already seen the monthly feature summary. I'll put links to all these ones I'm about to show you in the description. But this is a great summary of all the awesome stuff that got announced there. There's also on YouTube the keynote, day 1 and day 2. At least check out day 1 for all the great announcements and a bunch of great demos. There's also, when we start focusing on Data Factory, Faisal's got a great blog here that goes into more detail on a bunch of things, but the ones I'm most excited about, and I'm going to just mention those here and then show you a quick demo of the impact that these great new features can have. So we talked about the awesome growth that's happening with Data Factory, but it's really this pricing and performance section that I'm going to talk about today. The biggest one, in my opinion, is the base rate reduction. So up until now, you get charged against your capacity at a rate of 16 capacity units per second that your query runs, and they've dropped that now down to the first 10 minutes. Are reduced 25% to 12 CUs. And then the big part here is after 10 minutes. So if you have really long running data flows, the savings just goes crazy here, up to 90% less. So everything after 10 minutes, it's charged at 1.5 CUs. So from dropping from 16 down to 1.5, that's over a 90% reduction there. So capacities are going to take a smaller hit when it comes to data flow refreshes. And to me, this is probably the biggest news of the conference. But it doesn't stop there. Is they also announced a bunch of performance improvements as well. And there's two that I'm going to talk about today. One is the modern Power Query evaluator. And I'll show you where to set that. But you just turn it on and it often helps. Depending on what you're doing, it'll have more or less impact there, but it usually always helps. And then also there's this new feature called partitioned compute, which has got a ton of potential and a chance to really speed up refreshes as well. And so with those two things, the data flows are running faster, and for the time they're running, they cost significantly less. Those just multiply together, and data flows get much less expensive from a compute standpoint. So that's awesome. And then the last one is this preview only steps, which I'll just show you in the demo, but it's really good from a design, while you're building your queries, can really help speed you up and avoid a common workaround that most of us do when we're doing Power Query. All right. Another couple of great blogs here. There's one by Miguel that go into more detail about the pricing change, the enabling query preview, the modern query evaluator, partition compute, and then some other great features as well with destinations. So definitely check out these blogs. Again, I'll put the links in the description. Variable library support, all great stuff. And then this document goes into more detail about what I mentioned with the new pricing for data flows, and that the 16 dropping to 12 under 10 minutes, and then the 16 dropping to 1.5 after 10 minutes. Okay. All right. So to demonstrate these things, I did a simple experiment here. I've got a SharePoint document library. I've got a bunch of big CSV files with mock weekly sales data. There's 243 of these files. I'm not going to combine them all in this first demo, but I will in the second one here. So basically, I created a workspace and I tried to bring in the data from combining all those CSV files in lots of different ways. So doing it with the classic Dataflow Gen 1, doing it straight from Power BI semantic model, just using the query editor there. Also doing it with Dataflow Gen 2 without any of the new features selected, using the new modern query evaluator, and then also trying out partition compute. And then for the Dataflow Gen 2s, dropping those into a lakehouse to set you up for doing a direct lake semantic model. And then for the second part, I also went and pulled the data from this Dataflow Gen 1. So this is the classic scenario where you preload your data in a data flow and then pull it in an import semantic model. So this one is meant to simulate that. And then also taking the table from the modern query evaluator one and just creating a very simple direct lake model and doing that there. All right, so for all of these, I use the same M code. And just to show you what that looks like, this is the one for the partition compute. But all these things are the same. For this first experiment, I limited it just to take the first 50 files. I've got a very simple function here that I created. Instead of using the combine feature, I just wrote my own function here. And it's just a simple promote headers off of CSV document. So a very simple function. And then the sales table here, we apply that on the 50 files that it's limited to. And all of the ones I'm about to show you have the same M code. The reason I'm showing this one is there's one line that's different, and that's with this partition compute. So the extra line here, and I'm going to do a second video just on partition compute. But this one here, this step here is, there's some actions you can take, some operations you can do where it'll automatically do this for you. And more is going to come in that space. But for now, you can actually do your custom M code and add this step here, table.replace partition key, and it will actually trigger the partitioning and can really parallelize your query refreshes and speed things up. This demo today doesn't really showcase how powerful this is going to be, but I did want to at least test it as well to prove that I could just add this one line of code to do that. So in this case, I'm just using the file name as the partition to separate the different partitions. Okay. All right. So let's, the other thing too is this enable only in preview. So often when you're building, you may have to wait a long time for, the preview to refresh for you to try the next transformation and make sure that everything's working as expected. A common trick workaround that people usually do is they'll add like a keep first row step just to speed things up. And in this case, I'm actually going to use it here, but this is where you would add like a simple step here. Let's keep three rows, 2 rows. I would process 2 files because I know that all my files have the same structure. So if it works for 2, it's going to work for all of them. And I would add a step like this. So in this case, I'm actually using it, but where this new feature is right here is you would go enable only in previews. And so what this would do is if you check this, it'll do what it says. It'll limit it while you're building, but when you go to publish, it'll ignore that step if this is checked. And there's some text here that shows when you do that as well. And that can really speed things up. So you don't have to remember to remove the step you did to speed things up while you're building. So this is a great new feature that will really help speed up design time. All right. So for this first experiment, I just set up a simple pipeline to trigger all the ways I was processing that same M code. Again, the partition compute only had the one extra line there for table.replace partition key. But I just did them all in sequence. So they're all running in isolation and just triggered them to run one after the other. And just right here, you can see automatically the semantic model refresh, where again, we're just doing it in the Power Query inside of an import model, combining those 50 CSV files, took over 13 minutes. Dataflow Gen 1 took 12 minutes, and then it just gets better from there. So Dataflow Gen 2, without any of the new features, was faster. Kicking in the modern query evaluator, it gets even better. And then partition compute got even better. Again, I don't think this is the right scenario to really showcase the power here. I neglected to show you where to turn these settings on. And while you're in your editing your data flow, you just go up to the options dialog here. You'll want to make sure privacy, at least for the partition compute, I believe you need to have this checked, allow combining data from multiple sources. And then the new settings are under the scale one here. And that's where you want to make sure you click on allow use of the modern query evaluation engine. This one you definitely should just always turn on, and it's likely to help you. And then if you're going to try to do partition compute, either have it auto kick in or do your own custom M code, you'd want to check this here. The files I'm using in this demo aren't big enough to trigger the fast copy. They're less than 100 megabytes, so I didn't bother checking that. But if you have really big files, you probably also want to check fast copy connectors as well. So real simple to turn these on. Definitely turn on the modern query evaluation engine, and it's likely to help you out there. And that's all you have to do. So again, ran those. The durations were less. And so I wanted to do one more experiment where I just did a head-to-head of the Dataflow Gen 1, loading all 243 files. It's like 131 million rows, I think, when they're combined, versus just the modern query evaluator. And so I changed that threshold so that all the files were included, and then I just ran them head-to-head and just looked at the metrics app to compare. And so this is what I want to end on, is if I look just the Dataflow Gen 1, it took like over an hour, I think an hour 10 minutes. And then sorry, that's this one here. And then I also refreshed the data set where I pulled in the Dataflow into an import model. And so that's sort of the classic Dataflow and Power BI model scenario. But now with Fabric, and we have one lake where you can use your Dataflow Gen 2, set your data destination to a one lake table in your lake house, and then build a direct lake model on top of that, where the Delta table is already V-order sorted, which is what happens when this data set refreshes. It pulls it in from the Dataflow and then does the compression and sorting, and that's why the compute is high and extra time is taken for that. With Dataflow Gen 2 and Modern Query Evaluator, it performs much faster. I think this was like 19 minutes. The CU is much less. We'll talk about that in a second. And then I can build my direct lake model where it only takes 2 or 3 seconds to refresh it. And it's just it can be a huge reduction on compute hitting your capacity and a big reduction in refresh time for both your Dataflow Gen 1 and your semantic model. So a huge benefit there. And so then the biggest thing I said was that CU reduction against the capacity. And that only applies to this Dataflow Gen 2 one. But this one here, took 1,143 seconds, right? And so the first 600 seconds would be charged now at 12 CUs instead of 16. And then the 543 after that would be at 1.5. So if this 1143 had the old rate at 18, the total CUs that hit your capacity would have been over 18,000, right? So not only is it performing faster, it's also taking up less of your capacity, and so you can do more work now on the same size capacity. So to me, that's the biggest feature, but all of these are awesome. So definitely encourage you to check them out, and also look through the blog and watch the keynotes to see all the other awesome features that were released at FabCon.